Before you drift into sleep tonight, pause for a quiet thought. Everything you see, touch, and remember, every sound, color, and heartbeat is not happening out there as you think. It is being rebuilt inside your head, one instant at a time. Welcome to Science Reshaped, where we wander gently through the borders between science and perception. Tonight's journey asks a simple question with a startling answer. What if the world you experience isn't the world itself, but your brain's best interpretation of it? Open your eyes and it feels as if light rushes inward, forming an image on the stage of awareness. Yet the truth is stranger. The light enters, yes, but what you ultimately see is not that light. It's your brain's reconstruction of it. The mind collects fragments, fills empty spaces, and builds a seamless scene so believable that we rarely doubt its accuracy. Modern neuroscience calls this process a controlled hallucination. Your brain is forever predicting what exists beyond the senses, correcting its guesses with each new signal that arrives. It is not a passive camera recording truth. It is an artist painting possibilities. Optical illusions make this clear. When a flat image seems to move, or two colors shift depending on background, nothing in the picture has changed, only your interpretation. The brain invents motion, invents brightness, invents depth. Remember the internet argument over the dress? Some swore it was blue and black, others white and gold. The difference wasn't in the cloth, but in how each brain adjusted for light. Color itself doesn't exist outside you. The world contains only electromagnetic waves bouncing from surfaces. Your brain translates those frequencies into hue. In that sense, color is not a property of objects. It is a language your brain uses to describe them. The same rule governs every sense. Sound is air pressure rippling through space. Your brain transforms it into melody and meaning. The external world is silent until your neurons interpret vibration as tone. Touch too is constructed. When your fingers brush a table, what you feel isn't the surface itself, but your mind's simulation based on nerve signals arriving milliseconds. Apart experiments have even shown that the brain can be fooled into sensing touch on artificial limbs or invisible areas of space. It means feeling is not located in the fingers, it's written in the brain. So what, then, is reality? Perhaps it is whatever exists beyond perception, yet you can never step outside your own mind to compare its picture with the original. All you have are the reconstructions, the educated guesses the brain feeds you. Every moment, your nervous system faces an impossible flood of information, billions of data points your conscious mind could never process. To survive, your brain compresses, edits, and prioritizes. It turns that chaos into an organized movie of the world, updating the frames fast enough to keep you balanced and alive. Perception, then, is not a window. It's a creative act. Your brain builds a working model of the environment and constantly refreshes it. When the prediction fits the input, the illusion feels stable. When it doesn't, the picture shivers and changes. Imagine standing in a dim room at night. You glimpse a shadow that looks like a person in the corner. For a heartbeat, fear grips you. Then the moonlight shifts and you see it's just a coat on a chair. In that instant, your brain corrects the narrative. The false story vanishes, replaced by the new one. That's what your perception does every second. Predict, test, rewrite. This is how the mind works. It's forever composing the world, adjusting each scene to fit expectation and evidence. What you experience isn't the external world itself. It's your brain's best hypothesis about it. Notice how fragile this mechanism can be. Fatigue, stress, medication, or fever can all distort perception. When the body chemistry wobbles, so does the picture of reality. Under anesthesia, people sometimes hear voices or see shapes that aren't there. The brain, deprived of input, starts generating its own signals. Dreams are the clearest demonstration. During sleep, the brain disconnects from the senses but keeps the predictive engine running. Without outside data, it creates its own. Places, people, emotions, entire stories. The reason dreams feel vivid is that the same neural networks active during waking perception remain at work, only untethered. The boundary between sleeping and waking is thinner than it appears. Some neuroscientists think both states are kinds of simulation, one guided by the outside world, the other self-generated. The difference lies in how tightly reality constrains the model. So when you gaze around your room, remember, you're not directly seeing furniture or walls. You're seeing your mind's rendering of them, a three-dimensional projection constructed from light, memory, and expectation. Everything seems firm, continuous, trustworthy. But behind that comfort hides a deeper marvel. Your experience of reality is not reality itself. It's a well-crafted illusion, shared by billions of brains that happen to guess in roughly the same way. And that illusion is what keeps you alive. Without it, raw data would overwhelm you. The brain's shortcuts and predictions give structure to chaos, turning uncertainty into a world you can navigate. Take a slow breath and let this sink in. What you call reality is a collaboration between the physical world and the storyteller inside you. You live in a map drawn by your mind, constantly redrawn, never quite complete. Now that we understand how the brain constructs what we see, let's look at how it chooses what deserves our attention. Even within that built world, not every detail earns the same importance. Your attention behaves like a beam of light sweeping across a dark stage. Every second, countless sounds, colors, and sensations fight for a moment in its glow, but only a few make it through. Picture yourself standing in a crowded airport. Conversations overlap, footsteps echo, luggage rolls across the floor. Yet if someone behind you calls your name, you turn immediately. Among thousands of noises, one signal pierces through because your brain recognizes its relevance. Scientists describe this as selective attention. The mind can't process the entire flood of sensory input, so it filters, highlighting what matters most and discarding the rest. What reaches awareness feels like the whole truth, but it's only the portion your mind decided was useful. A well-known experiment proves this point vividly. Volunteers were asked to watch a short clip of two groups passing basketballs. They were told to count how many times the players in white made a pass. Midway through the video, a person in a gorilla suit walked calmly through the scene, pounded their chest, and exited. When viewers were questioned afterward, nearly half never saw the gorilla at all. This phenomenon isn't blindness of the eyes, it's blindness of focus. Because your attention was locked on counting passes, the rest of the scene faded from perception. You don't simply see the world, you see what your brain expects to see. Attention doesn't just filter, it shapes reality. When you focus on something, your brain amplifies that input and suppresses competing signals. It enhances one thread of experience and dims the background, sculpting what feels real in the moment. It's like turning up contrast on a photograph. The image doesn't change, only the emphasis does. Look into the face of someone you love, and every feature becomes vivid. Glance at a stranger, and your brain captures only broad outlines. What you call reality bends slightly toward what feels meaningful. Attention, however, is fragile. Fatigue, distraction, or emotion can narrow it until crucial details disappear. Under stress, your mental spotlight shrinks. You might miss cues, mishear phrases, or remember events differently. That's why several witnesses to the same scene can describe it in conflicting ways. They weren't watching the same mental movie. And what happens to everything outside that focus? It doesn't vanish. It continues quietly in the background, processed just enough to influence mood and intuition. At times, fragments of what you didn't consciously notice reappear later as déjà vu or sudden insight. Your conscious awareness rides atop an ocean of unnoticed activity. For every thought you recognize, thousands of signals ripple beneath awareness, shaping instinct and emotion. Now consider memory. It feels like a video archive, a faithful record of life's events, but it isn't. Memory is another act of construction. Each time you recall something, your brain rebuilds it from fragments, bits of image, sound, emotion, and story. During that reconstruction, details can shift. Small blanks are filled with assumptions so that the memory remains coherent. Every recollection subtly edits the original, meaning that when you remember, you're remembering the last time you remembered, not the event itself. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus illustrated this with her studies on eyewitness testimony. When people were shown a short film of a car accident and asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? Their speed estimates were moderate. When the question was rephrased with smashed, their estimates jumped higher, and many later insisted they saw broken glass that wasn't there. A single word rewrote the scene in their minds. Memory, then, is not a photograph, but a painting retouched every time you look at it. Over years, colors fade or shift. Entire moments can blend or separate. Even the memory of yourself, your continuous sense of I, depends on these fragile reconstructions. The feeling that you are the same person from childhood to now comes from your brain's effort to connect all those scattered images into a single, consistent story. You are, in a sense, the narrative your mind keeps updating to stay believable. If perception is the film projected by the brain, memory is the editing studio where scenes are recut and rearranged. Together they maintain the illusion of a solid world inhabited by a stable self. When that illusion breaks, reality itself seems to dissolve. People suffering memory loss from trauma or disease often describe the world as dimmer, less meaningful. Without the thread of remembered identity, their sense of being someone unravels. Your idea of self is not a permanent object, it's an ongoing process. The brain continuously builds and rebuilds it from sensory input, emotion, and narrative continuity. To glimpse this process, imagine waking in a dark hotel room after traveling. For the first few seconds, you don't recognize where you are. The furniture is unfamiliar, the air feels different. Then memory returns, the flight, the check-in, the soft hum of the air conditioner, and suddenly the room makes sense. Nothing changed in reality, only your brain reconnected the context. The world outside didn't shift. You did. That moment reveals how your consciousness works. Awareness is the act of stitching perception, memory, and prediction into a unified present. But because it's a construction, it sometimes falters. When the brain's guesses slip out of sync, you experience illusions, déjà vu, or false recognition. The system hasn't failed, it's simply overconfident in its prediction. Take déjà vu. You walk into a new place and feel that you've been there before. Scientists believe it happens when the brain's memory and perception networks briefly desynchronize, tricking you into sensing familiarity and novelty. Reality hasn't repeated. It's your predictive model echoing a pattern. So whether you're perceiving, remembering, or imagining, one truth persists. The brain never delivers the external world directly. It presents a story, an ever-updated version of what it believes is real. If someone could record the raw data entering your eyes and ears and play it back unfiltered, it would look like chaos, light and sound without structure. It's your mind that turns that storm into order, building the coherent world you depend on. Every human lives inside a private simulation tuned for survival rather than accuracy. But illusion doesn't mean falseness. It means translation. The outside world exists, but what feels real is your mind's beautiful, functional interpretation of it. That realization may unsettle at first, yet it also offers power. If your experience is shaped by attention and memory, then awareness itself can change what the world feels like. Your perception isn't fixed, it's flexible. How you focus, what you believe, and how you remember continually redefine the reality you live in. Now let's move from memory to another mystery that reveals how the mind never truly stops building worlds: dreaming. Each night, while the body lies motionless, the mind remains active. Even as your eyes close and the outside world fades, the same machinery that constructs waking reality continues its work, but now free from external limits. Dreams are evidence that the brain doesn't require sensory input to create vivid experiences. Without real light, sound, or touch, it can still summon entire landscapes, voices, and emotions that feel tangible. When you wake, the difference isn't how real the dream felt. It's that it no longer aligns with the world around you. During rapid eye movement sleep, the visual areas of the brain ignite almost as strongly as when you're awake. The emotional centers also become highly active, while logical regions quiet down. That's why dream events often follow emotional logic instead of physical rules. In a dream, what feels true is true for as long as it lasts. Many researchers believe dreaming acts as rehearsal. It's the brain running simulations, testing responses, exploring possibilities, practicing survival. Others think it's a form of overnight organization, sorting and integrating the day's experiences, deciding what to keep and what to let fade. Whatever the function, one fact remains: the dreaming mind is still a predicting mind. Deprived of real data, it fills the void with imagination. The same circuits that make you perceive the world while awake make you perceive the dream while asleep. The difference is that dreams don't need to match reality. They just need to make emotional sense. Have you ever realized you were dreaming while still inside the dream? That lucid moment, when you recognize the illusion but it doesn't break, reveals something profound. Awareness itself can exist inside the simulation. Consciousness doesn't vanish. It observes even there, inside a reality built entirely by the mind. This boundary between dream and wakefulness is much thinner than it appears. When you daydream, remember vividly, or imagine the future, you are essentially dreaming while awake. The same mental tools that generate sleep imagery are active during visualization and planning. Reality, therefore, is simply the dream that most of us agree on. Its stability comes from consensus. Your personal version of the world aligns just enough with everyone else's for cooperation to be possible. Now we arrive at one of the deepest questions: consciousness itself. What exactly is the feeling of being aware? Science can map which brain regions activate when you're conscious, but no measurement explains how electrical activity produces experience, the vivid I am that each person carries. This puzzle is often called the hard problem of consciousness. The brain can describe colors, sounds, and motion, but it cannot yet explain why those things are accompanied by awareness, why the inner movie is felt. Some thinkers suggest consciousness arises naturally from complexity. When a network becomes sufficiently connected, awareness emerges as a property of its structure. Others believe consciousness might be fundamental, existing everywhere like gravity or time, and the brain merely channels it. But whatever the mechanism, the self you experience is not a fixed entity. It's a continuous process. Inside the skull, billions of neurons exchange signals, building a model of the body, the environment, and relationships. Out of that dynamic web arises the quiet voice that says, "me." But that voice can vanish. In deep meditation or certain neurological states, the sense of personal identity can dissolve completely. Perception continues. Sounds, colors, sensations remain, but without ownership. People who experience this describe it as awareness without a center, as if the universe itself were perceiving through them. These experiences suggest the self is not a solid thing but a pattern, maintained by the brain, a stable whirlpool in the stream of consciousness. Think of it like a character in a play that the brain writes and rewrites to organize experience. The story unfolds, and to make sense of it, the brain needs a protagonist, so it creates one. That's the illusion of I. When you recall the past, you imagine that same character moving through time. When you plan ahead, you project that character forward. Both are simulations built in the present moment. The self you remember and the self you anticipate are constructed from the same neural activity occurring now. That's why philosophers and neuroscientists describe identity not as a constant object, but as a continuous narrative. You are the story your brain tells itself to stay coherent. If the brain builds both the external world and the self inside it, what does that mean for reality? Does anything exist independent of perception? Physics assures us there is an external universe governed by laws beyond our influence. But our experience of that universe is always mediated through sensory interpretation. We never meet matter directly. We meet its mental translation. Imagine two people watching a sunset. The wavelengths of light striking their eyes are nearly identical, yet the experiences differ. One feels nostalgia, another feels hope. The physical sky is shared, but its meaning is personal. Each consciousness lives in its own version of the world. The stage may be common, but the lighting, music, and script vary for everyone. Understanding this makes empathy easier. You realize that no two people inhabit the exact same reality. Each person's brain filters experience through memory, culture, and emotion, producing a slightly different world. It also reveals why absolute certainty is dangerous. Since perception is always a guess, wisdom lies in humility. The most perceptive minds are not those convinced they're right. They're the ones willing to adjust their models when the evidence shifts. Picture your mind as an artist, endlessly painting the same landscape. Each new brushstroke corrects the one before, adjusting color and line to better match experience. The masterpiece is never finished. What you call reality is that ongoing act of refinement, and you are both the artist and the witness. You can step back, observe, and even influence the process by becoming aware of how your perception is shaped. Recognizing that your reality is constructed doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it miraculous. Despite being built from guesses, your inner world is rich enough to hold love, art, discovery, and wonder. Humanity's greatest strength lies in our ability to share those private illusions well enough to build a common world. From that shared construction come language, culture, and science itself. When minds cooperate, Their overlapping predictions converge into something larger than any one perception, a collective version of reality. Through that cooperation, meaning emerges. The illusion becomes a shared truth, and in that truth, humanity finds connection. If the mind is always writing its own version of reality, what happens when that process starts to slip? What if the machinery that keeps your world stable begins to misfire? To see how fragile perception can be, consider what occurs when the illusion cracks. Some people, after injury or illness, lose the ability to recognize familiar faces. They can describe every feature perfectly, the eyes, the mouth, the shape of the nose, yet insist the person is an imposter. This strange condition, known as Capgras syndrome, shows that recognition depends not only on sight, but on emotion. The visual circuits still work, but the emotional signal that says, "This is someone I know," has vanished. Faced with that mismatch, the brain invents a story that makes sense of the feeling. She looks exactly like my wife, but she isn't. The delusion fills the gap left by the missing connection. Hallucinations reveal the same principle from another angle. When someone sees or hears things that others don't, the brain is simply producing predictions without the normal sensory feedback to test them. The mechanism isn't broken, it's running unchecked. Perception and hallucination are built from the same machinery. The difference is only how tightly the brain's expectations are anchored to external data. All of us hallucinate all the time. We just agree on the ones we share. That idea sounds unsettling, but it highlights how finely balanced consciousness is. Every moment your brain stands between chaos and coherence, adjusting the signal so that the story remains believable. Think about belief itself. When the brain expects healing, the body often responds as though it's receiving treatment. That's the placebo effect. Expectation shaping physical reality. Reverse the expectation and pain increases. That's nocebo. Belief and physiology are intertwined. Expectation doesn't replace the external world. It colors it. The brain predicts sensations, and the body follows those predictions. In this way, belief becomes part of the perceptual process. Culture works the same way, only on a collective scale. Each society trains its members to interpret gestures, words, and symbols in certain ways. A nod might mean agreement in one place and insult in another. These learned expectations create different perceptual worlds. When you travel or learn a new language, your brain slowly rewires itself to match the local rules, updating its predictions until the unfamiliar begins to feel natural. This ability to rewrite the model, to adapt, to learn, is what allows humans to survive almost anywhere. Yet the same system that lets us grow also traps us. We cling to familiar patterns because they make the world predictable. Even when faced with contrary evidence, the mind prefers the comfort of its own narrative. Bias, prejudice, and stubborn certainty are simply prediction errors the brain refuses to update. The cost of stability is rigidity, but progress, personal and scientific, depends on surprise. Being wrong is how models improve. Every time your expectation fails, your brain learns a little more about what's real. Curiosity is the courage to let the prediction break and rebuild. Science, at its heart, is the collective version of that process. Each experiment is humanity's attempt to reduce its shared error, testing the illusion against reality and adjusting the story. Through repetition, correction, and peer review, the world's collective hallucination becomes slightly more accurate. Your individual mind and civilization at large follow the same pattern. Predict, test, revise, repeat. Think of the billions of overlapping predictions produced by every brain on the planet. When they align closely enough, we call that alignment objective truth. The world appears stable not because any one mind perceives it perfectly, but because so many minds negotiate and agree on its features. That's why reality feels shared. It's a negotiated hallucination, stabilized through communication. Look down at your hands for a moment. They feel solid, obvious, indisputable. Yet at the microscopic level, they are mostly empty space, a cloud of particles held together by invisible forces. What you experience as touch is electrical interpretation, pressure signals translated into certainty. You are both observing and creating the feeling at once. Change the chemistry of the brain through fever, drugs, or trauma, and the illusion wavers. Colors shift, sounds distort, time stretches. The world bends with the storyteller's state. Still, the mind always rebuilds. By morning, the hallucination reforms, precise enough for daily life. That persistence is astonishing. Even knowing how much is guessed, you awaken each day into a world that feels whole. Perhaps that's the real miracle. Not that reality exists, but that your brain can maintain such a convincing version of it from moment to moment. Everything we call ordinary life depends on that fragile continuity. Without it, you would drown in randomness. With it, you can love, build, and remember. The illusion may not last forever, but while it holds, it gives meaning. When sunlight touches your face or wind brushes your skin, you are feeling the mind's most elegant construction. The sensation is both truth and art, physics translated into experience. Reality is not a fixed object. It's a living performance rehearsed endlessly by the brain, and you are both actor and audience, inventing the stage as you walk across it. Now that we've seen how easily perception can bend, let's look deeper into what holds our sense of self together. The ongoing story that each of us calls I. Your feeling of being a single, continuous person doesn't come from one place in the brain. It's a product of many systems working together. Memory, attention, emotion, prediction, all synchronized to maintain the illusion of a steady identity. But this unity is delicate. When those systems drift out of rhythm, the sense of self can dissolve or distort entirely. For example, in cases of severe amnesia, people lose not only specific memories, but also the thread connecting them to their own history. They remain conscious, but they no longer feel like the same person. Without memory's narrative, the self unravels. Even without injury, you felt small echoes of this, waking up in a strange place and needing a moment to recall where you are. For an instant, identity flickers, until memory fills in the missing context, and the story resumes. That moment shows how identity is constructed on demand. The brain constantly reloads the model of you using available data, sensations, memories, expectations. The process happens so smoothly that you rarely notice it at all. It's tempting to think of consciousness as a single, continuous stream, but in truth, it's more like a rapid sequence of snapshots, each perception slightly updating the last. What you experience as stability is your mind's ability to connect those frames into a coherent movie. Sometimes that movie glitches. You might feel detached from yourself, as though watching life from outside your body. This state, called depersonalization, reveals how the self is an active construction, not a fixed truth. When the brain's integration falters, the narrator's voice inside you grows faint. Even in ordinary life, your sense of me changes constantly. You are not the same self at work, at home, or in a dream. You adjust tone, posture, and even memory to fit the current context. Each version feels authentic, yet they can contradict each other. The brain simply edits transitions so smoothly that the differences go unnoticed. This flexibility shows that identity isn't an object, it's a verb. It's the act of continuously reassembling a story. That story is vital because it allows you to plan, to learn from mistakes, and to anticipate the future. Without it, time would feel flat, an endless present with no continuity. But it also creates illusions. The self insists it's in control, when in fact most decisions form subconsciously. Neuroscientists can measure brain activity, indicating a choice seconds before a person becomes aware of deciding. By the time you choose, your brain has already moved. Consciousness lags behind the machinery it believes it commands. Still, awareness serves a purpose. It may not initiate every action, but it observes, evaluates, and adjusts. It's the narrator keeping track of the script, ensuring that the next chapter of your story aligns with the last. The illusion of authorship might not be perfect, but it keeps life coherent. Now think about language. Every time you describe yourself, your likes, your goals, your memories, you reinforce the structure of identity. Each word you choose shapes how your brain recalls and predicts who you are. Stories about the self don't merely record the past, they sculpt the future. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I'm unlucky," or "I'm not good enough," those sentences become templates for prediction. Your mind begins filtering experience to confirm them. Likewise, when you focus on growth and possibility, your brain adjusts its model to expect improvement. The self, in this way, is a work of narrative engineering. Every belief, every memory retelling strengthens the scaffolding of who you think you are. But remember, a story is powerful precisely because it can be rewritten. Changing a single sentence in the internal narrative can shift how your brain perceives the entire world. Just as memory reconstructs the past, imagination constructs the self. When you visualize your future, you're rehearsing the version of you that hasn't happened yet. The same neural networks that recall memories also simulate possible futures. To the brain, imagination and memory are nearly identical processes. Both are stories projected across time. This overlap explains why anticipation can trigger emotion as strongly as reality. Worrying about an event that hasn't occurred can cause the same stress response as the event itself. Your body reacts to prediction as if it were truth. It also explains why hope can heal. When you picture a positive outcome vividly enough, your body begins preparing for it physiologically. The boundary between thought and experience blurs because, to your nervous system, they operate on the same stage. All of this shows how inseparable the inner world is from the outer. You don't just live in your environment. You live in the story your mind tells about it. When that story changes, so does reality. Consider déjà vu again, that sudden conviction that you've lived this moment before. It happens when the brain's recognition and memory systems briefly misfire, labeling the present as familiar even though it's new. For a second, the model of reality slips. You're aware of the prediction being written in real time. Moments like that remind us that perception, memory, and identity are all facets of the same construction, the brain's attempt to maintain continuity in an unpredictable world. You might think that realizing all this would make life feel hollow, but often it has the opposite effect. Understanding that yourself and your world are built in tandem gives you the freedom to change either one. Awareness doesn't destroy the illusion, it lets you shape it deliberately. When you step back and notice the process, when you observe how attention defines importance, how memory edits, and how language reinforces identity, you begin to see the machinery at work. And once you see it, you're no longer entirely bound by it. The self you experience is a masterpiece of construction, fragile, adaptive, endlessly rewritten. It's not a flaw that it's made up. It's what makes you human. Every morning you wake up, rebuild the narrative, and step back into the story. You remember just enough of yesterday to continue, fill in the blanks, and begin again. That is what consciousness does. It keeps the story going. When you open your eyes each morning, your brain does something extraordinary. In less than a second, it reconstructs the entire world and reinstalls you inside it. It doesn't wait for proof or careful measurement. It simply begins. Light reaches the eyes, sounds drift in from nearby rooms, the air touches the skin, and from those fragments, the mind rebuilds its masterpiece, the experience of waking life. That daily recreation reveals the real purpose of perception. It is not meant to show the universe as it truly is, but to give you a world stable enough to act within. The brain's goal is usefulness, not accuracy. It predicts what should be there, fills the gaps, and delivers a convincing illusion before you've even taken your first conscious breath. Imagine if you actually had to process every photon and vibration as raw data. The flood would be unbearable. Instead, your brain takes shortcuts, compressing vast amounts of information into manageable symbols. A shadow becomes chair. A complex mix of frequencies becomes my friend's voice. Meaning replaces measurement. Every second, that efficiency saves you from chaos. Yet it also hides from you how much of life is inferred rather than seen. To grasp how predictive this system really is, think of the first time you visited a place that later became familiar. A new job, a new school, a new city. The first few days felt overwhelming. Your mind had to map every corridor, every sound, every route, but within weeks, you stopped noticing most of it. Your brain had built a complete internal model. You no longer saw the hallway, you saw the expectation of a hallway. Only when something changed, a light burned out, a sign moved, did you truly look again. This is perception at work, a constant balance between memory and surprise. Your senses provide corrections, not raw truth. Even your sense of time is constructed this way. The brain stitches separate moments together so seamlessly that experience feels continuous. But neuroscientists know that consciousness actually refreshes in rhythmic bursts, like frames of film. What you call the present is a narrow window your mind keeps sliding forward, updating just quickly enough to feel unbroken. Because prediction drives perception, attention becomes the editing tool. Wherever you direct that inner spotlight, the brain increases detail and reduces noise. When you focus on a single sound in a crowd, neural circuits amplify the relevant frequencies and quiet everything else. The world literally changes resolution depending on where you look. Now imagine losing control of that spotlight. Picture being unable to tune out the hum of an air conditioner, the flicker of a lamp, the shifting weight of clothing on your skin. That overload, every stimulus equally loud, occurs in certain neurological conditions. It shows that attention isn't just preference, it's survival. Without it, reality becomes unbearable noise. But attention is also biased. It bends toward what confirms your expectations or threatens your safety. A worried mind searches for danger and finds it. A grateful mind notices kindness and gathers more of it. In this way, attention and emotion form a feedback loop that sculpts experience moment by moment. Consider walking through a forest at night. A twig snaps nearby. Instantly, your prediction engine leaps ahead. Predator, intruder, danger. Heart rate rises, muscles tighten, pupils widen. The world around you hasn't changed. Only your expectation has, yet that change floods the body with chemicals preparing for defense. If you discover it was only wind, the body relaxes. But the feeling of alarm was real. The predicted threat became a lived event. This same process happens in everyday life, only subtler. A single anxious thought can trigger physical tension. A hopeful one can ease it. Because the brain and body are parts of one system, imagination carries weight equal to perception. Now take this further. When millions of people share the same expectations, their overlapping illusions form collective realities. Cultures, economies, religions, languages. Each is a large-scale prediction model kept alive by agreement. Money, for instance, has value only because we all act as though it does. Remove shared belief, and the symbol collapses. From an evolutionary standpoint, this collective construction is a triumph. By synchronizing our internal worlds, we built societies, technologies, and sciences far beyond what a solitary mind could manage. Communication is the act of aligning hallucinations until they overlap enough to cooperate. Yet alignment comes with risk. When agreement hardens into certainty, curiosity fades. Entire civilizations have clung to outdated models long after evidence demanded change. At both personal and cultural scales, rigidity is blindness disguised as truth. Progress depends on those willing to question the shared illusion. Every scientific revolution, from heliocentrism to quantum physics, began when someone dared to suspect the picture might be wrong. The same courage fuels personal growth. When you realize that your inner model may be incomplete, you open the door to learning. Being wrong, then, isn't failure, it's upgrade. Each prediction error refines the brain's map of the world, carving out more accuracy with every mistake. Think of life as a long calibration. You begin as a newborn with almost no model at all, colors undefined, faces unfamiliar, time meaningless. Through trial and correction, you slowly learn how to predict better. The process never ends. Even in old age, every new experience fine-tunes the illusion. Understanding this can make you more forgiving, both toward yourself and others. Everyone you meet is navigating through their own hallucination, adjusting it as best they can. Misunderstandings are not failures of morality, they're collisions between different predictive worlds. Compassion is the recognition that every mind is painting its own picture, and no two are exactly the same. So far, we've explored how perception builds the outer world and how identity stitches the inner one. But these are two sides of the same mirror. The model of me and the model of reality are interlocked. Change one, and the other must shift to stay consistent. That's why transformation, whether through learning, trauma, or insight, can make the world itself look different. When the inner narrator updates, colors seem brighter, time feels slower or faster, and priorities rearrange. The environment didn't change, the observer did. It's as if the brain constantly negotiates a contract between self and world. I will believe this is who I am, and in return, this is the kind of universe I'll live in. Every morning that contract renews, and every night it quietly dissolves as you dream another version of existence. If you could watch that process unfold at the level of neurons, it would look like a vast orchestra tuning before a performance, signals rising and falling until harmony emerges. The moment it does, awareness appears, the world takes form, the self awakens, and the grand simulation begins again. And yet, beneath all this activity lies a quiet question that has haunted scientists and philosophers alike. If the self and the world are both constructs, what, if anything, exists underneath them? Is there a raw, unfiltered reality behind the predictions? Or is the guessing all there is? No one knows. But simply asking the question points you towards something remarkable. The awareness that notices the guessing. The part of you that can observe thoughts and illusions without being lost in them. That awareness cannot easily be measured or described. It seems to stand slightly apart from the machinery of mind, watching it work. Some call it consciousness itself, the clear space in which every image, sound, and feeling arises. Whatever its nature, that witnessing presence is the quiet constant amid the storm of prediction. Even when your memories shift, when emotions surge, when attention falters, something remains able to notice the movement. To glimpse that stillness is to realize that you are not only the story being told, but also the listener hearing it. You are the dreamer and the dream, the painter and the painting, forever intertwined. When the mind drifts into sleep, it does not fall silent. While the body rests, the brain remains busy, rehearsing the very act of perception that defines waking life. The stage changes, the lights dim, but the play continues. During those hours of dreaming, the same neural circuits that construct daylight reality ignite again, only now. There is no external world to correct their guesses. The brain becomes both the artist and the observer, creating a self-contained simulation that feels every bit as real as the one you wake to each morning. Dreams remind us that perception needs almost nothing to begin. Even with eyes closed and muscles still, the mind can generate color, motion, and emotions so convincing that you laugh, run, fall, and fear as though it were all tangible. When you awaken, the difference is not that the dream was less vivid. It is that the outer world no longer agrees with it. During REM sleep, your eyes dart beneath closed lids, mirroring the movement of vision. Activity surges through the visual cortex, the limbic system, and the brainstem. Regions responsible for logic and self-monitoring fall quiet. That is why dream narratives can break every physical rule, yet still feel perfectly natural while they happen. In a dream, gravity bends, time folds, the dead return, and distance means nothing, because emotional coherence replaces physical law. The brain's predictions keep running, but now answer only to imagination. Some scientists view this nightly theatre as rehearsal. The mind, freed from consequence, explores scenarios and tests reactions. It combines memories into strange new arrangements, searching for patterns and preparing for uncertainty. Others see dreaming as psychological housekeeping, a way to integrate the day's events, to store what matters and erase what does not. Whether rehearsal or restoration, the lesson is the same. Perception is prediction, even in sleep. The dreaming brain continues to simulate, using internal data instead of sensory input. Think back to a time you realized you were dreaming but did not wake. That lucid awareness, I'm inside my own imagination, offers a glimpse of consciousness observing itself. The body lies still, yet the mind stands within its own creation, able to watch and even guide it. Lucidity reveals something profound. The awareness you call I is not bound to the physical world. It can awaken inside a world made of nothing but thought and memory. When morning comes and you open your eyes, the transition is smoother than you think. Waking life is simply another dream constrained by sensory feedback. Both are mental models, differing only in how tightly they are corrected by incoming evidence. Daydreaming proves this continuity. You drift in a meeting or on a bus, and for a few seconds you're elsewhere, replaying a memory, imagining tomorrow. The external world fades, replaced by an inner one, built from the same circuits that produce nocturnal dreams. The difference is scale and intensity, not substance. Reality, then, can be described as the collective dream we agree upon. What makes it real is not its absolute truth, but our shared participation in it. Each mind projects its version, and overlap between versions creates the world of consensus. This realization leads naturally to the question of consciousness itself, the silent witness behind all experience. Science can chart which brain networks glow with activity when a person is awake, but no diagram explains how electrical impulses produce the feeling of existence. This unsolved mystery, the hard problem, asks how matter gives rise to mind. Why does a physical brain contain the glow of subjectivity? Why is there something it feels like to be you? Many theories attempt to answer. Some researchers argue that awareness emerges once information becomes richly interconnected, when complexity crosses a certain threshold. Others propose that consciousness may be fundamental, woven into the universe like space and time, waiting for organisms to channel it. Yet regardless of theory, what you experience as self appears to be an ongoing process rather than a fixed object. Inside the skull, billions of neurons exchange chemical signals, forming a shifting map of body, environment, and relation. Out of that living map rises the sense of identity, the internal narrator telling the story of me. But that narrator can go silent. In deep meditation, under anesthesia, or through specific neurological events, people sometimes report awareness without self, seeing, hearing, or feeling without the usual sense of ownership. The boundary between observer and observed vanishes, leaving pure experience without commentary. Such states hint that the self is like a temporary pattern on the surface of awareness, a whirlpool forming and dissolving within a larger sea. The water remains, only the shape changes. Think of it as a role played by consciousness. The mind invents a protagonist so that the story of existence has a center. Every memory, every plan, every emotion becomes part of that narrative. The character called you is sustained by continual storytelling. When you remember childhood, the same character appears in miniature. When you imagine the future, it reappears aged and wiser. Yet both are constructed right now in the present brain. The continuity of identity is a film edited in real time, frame by frame, to maintain coherence. That's why each of us feels solid, yet changes constantly. The self is a bridge built anew each moment over the moving river of experience. Because this construction happens so quickly, you rarely notice it. You simply feel like the same person you were yesterday. But in truth, yesterday's memories have already been rewritten, and tomorrow's self is under construction. The fluidity of identity is not a flaw. It's the very feature that allows growth. The brain's ability to update its model of you is what makes learning and healing possible. Without that flexibility, you would remain frozen in every past version of yourself. Even language, the way you describe yourself to others, reinforces this dynamic. Each sentence, I'm tired, I'm strong, I'm unlucky, I'm improving, acts as a small command to the predictive machinery of the mind. Repetition trains the brain to expect certain outcomes and to filter experience accordingly. Words are instructions your nervous system follows. Understanding this gives you quiet influence. Changing vocabulary can change perception. Describing a challenge as temporary instead of hopeless shifts the brain's forecast, and with it, the felt reality of the moment. Such subtle adjustments accumulate. Over time, they rewrite both the internal narrator and the world it observes. To see how deep this connection goes, consider how emotion rewrites memory. When you recall an event during anger, your mind highlights injustice. When calm, the same event feels less severe. The memory itself changes color depending on the emotional lens applied. This constant revision keeps the self adaptive but also makes it unreliable. The mind values coherence over accuracy. It prefers a consistent story to a truthful one. Even so, this imperfection is what allows the illusion of continuity that makes life livable. The self doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to feel believable enough to keep going. Awareness observes all this, the building, the forgetting, the dreaming, the rewriting, and remains untouched. It is the stage upon which every thought appears and disappears. Whether you are lost in a dream or fully awake, that silent witness endures. Perhaps consciousness is not something the brain produces, but something it reveals, the way a radio reveals sound that already fills the air. The neural circuits in this metaphor tune the signal. When the equipment quiets, the broadcast continues unseen. No one knows for certain. But noticing that mystery, the sheer fact that there is experience at all, is enough to evoke wonder. Out of inert matter somehow arises the feeling of life, the story of self, the world of color and form, dreaming, waking, remembering. They are all faces of the same creative act, the universe becoming aware through you. If consciousness is the stage on which everything appears, then what happens when that stage starts to falter? What occurs when the lights flicker, when the machinery behind awareness skips a beat? Understanding this helps us see how fragile perception truly is, and how much of what we call reality depends on precise cooperation between brain and body. When those systems fall out of sync, the illusion can break. There are people who open their eyes, see the world clearly, recognize every detail, and yet feel that the people around them are strangers wearing familiar faces. The voice, the gestures, even the laughter are identical, but the emotional certainty that says this person belongs to me has vanished. This condition, known as Capgras syndrome, exposes the deep link between emotion and recognition. The brain's visual pathways function normally, but the route that connects vision to emotional response has failed. Faced with this conflict, the mind doesn't shrug. It invents. It writes a story that makes sense of the missing feeling. That looks like my wife, but it can't be her. Someone is pretending. Through that simple but haunting delusion, we glimpse the machinery normally hidden beneath the surface. The brain constructs not only the world's appearance, but also its emotional gravity. Things feel real only when perception and emotion agree. Hallucinations offer another view of this boundary. When someone hears a voice no one else hears, or sees shapes others can't, the same predictive system is at work. It's just running without enough external correction. The difference between seeing reality and seeing illusion is not in the process, but in calibration. The mind is always guessing. Sometimes it guesses too boldly. This is why neuroscientists often say, we are all hallucinating all the time. When our hallucinations line up, we call that agreement. When they don't, we call it psychosis. That idea can sound unsettling, but it points to a simple truth. The mind is constantly negotiating between imagination and evidence. When the balance holds, the world feels stable. When it slips, the dream bleeds into daylight. But there's a more subtle form of illusion that most of us live inside every day: expectation. Expectation is the quiet sculptor of perception. Before any event happens, your brain predicts what should occur. When reality arrives, you perceive the difference between the prediction and the outcome. If they match, satisfaction. If they don't, surprise or discomfort. This mechanism shapes more of your experience than you might think. Take the placebo effect, the remarkable phenomenon where belief itself can trigger genuine healing. When patients expect relief, the brain releases chemicals that mirror the effect of real medicine. Pain subsides, anxiety lifts, wounds heal faster. The opposite, the nocebo effect, proves the same rule in reverse. Expecting harm can cause pain even without cause. In both cases, expectation doesn't just interpret reality, it physically changes it. The body responds to belief as though it were fact. That might sound mystical, but it's pure biology. The brain's forecasts regulate hormones, immune function, and even cell repair. The narrative you believe about your body subtly instructs it how to behave. The same holds true for emotion and perception. If you expect hostility, you spot frowns before smiles. If you expect kindness, you notice gentle gestures others overlook. Attention seeks confirmation. The mind filters the world to prove itself right. This predictive bias explains why two people can live through the same situation and come away with opposite memories. One saw threat, the other opportunity. The difference was not in the event, it was in their models of reality. Expectation doesn't end with individuals. Entire cultures share predictive patterns. From early childhood, you learn what gestures mean, what foods smell pleasant, what behaviors are polite or rude. These patterns teach your brain how to interpret sensory input. When you travel to another country, your predictive model is suddenly outdated. A familiar expression means something else. A taste or sound triggers confusion. The result is what we call culture shock, the discomfort of a brain flooded with prediction errors. Over time, as you adapt, the errors decrease and comfort returns. You've rewritten your inner map of meaning. That's how flexible the human mind is. It can rebuild reality itself to match new evidence. But that flexibility has limits. The same mechanism that allows learning also breeds bias. Once a prediction feels safe, we cling to it, even when it's wrong. Certainty gives comfort, and the brain prefers comfort to chaos. That's why we defend beliefs as if they were part of our bodies. To the mind they are. A challenge to an idea feels like a threat to survival because it creates prediction error, an uncomfortable mismatch between what we expect and what we perceive. Science, in its purest form, is the antidote to this instinct. It's a collective practice of noticing where the illusion fails and adjusting the model. Each experiment is a negotiation between expectation and evidence. Progress happens not through certainty, but through correction. You can see the same principle in daily life. Every mistake, every unexpected outcome is your personal experiment, a chance to revise the mental map. Growth is simply error correction at scale. Imagine billions of minds doing this simultaneously. Each brain contributes its own set of predictions, testing them against shared experience. The overlap forms what we call objective reality, not because it is absolute, but because enough people agree on it. Reality, viewed this way, is a consensus hallucination, a shared dream refined by communication. This agreement doesn't make the world false. It's what allows cooperation. Society functions because we roughly match each other's illusions. Money, law, and language all depend on synchronized imagination. Yet every agreement hides variation. Two people can read the same sentence and feel opposite emotions. Their brains attach different histories, assumptions, and predictions to the same pattern of words. The illusion overlaps, but never fully merges. That small gap between minds is where misunderstanding lives, but it's also where empathy is born. Recognizing that every person occupies a slightly different world helps us treat one another with patience. We realize that our version of truth is just one angle of a vast mosaic. Compassion, in this sense, is not sentimental, it's scientific. It's the understanding that perception is subjective and that everyone's simulation is doing its best to stay stable. Now look at your hand. It appears solid, obvious, and familiar. You trust its reality completely. Yet at the atomic level, it is a blur of charged particles separated by more emptiness than substance. The firmness you feel when your two hands press together is electrical repulsion, interpreted by the brain as resistance. That means the solidity of the physical world, the sense that matter exists as we experience it, is another construction. If your brain's chemistry shifts, so does that feeling of solidity. Under certain drugs, diseases, or fevers, time stretches, objects breathe, colors pulse. The external world hasn't changed, your internal interpreter has. Still, every morning when you wake, the illusion repairs itself. The world reassembles into order, and the story continues. Perhaps that continuity, the ability to keep rebuilding despite constant flux, is the most astonishing illusion of all. Each day, consciousness restores the same world with enough accuracy to keep living in it. That persistence is why reality feels trustworthy, even though it's built from guesses. The performance is so consistent that you forget it's a performance. Think about that. Despite constant neural noise, chemical change, and sensory distortion, your mind delivers a stable narrative. A room, a sky, a self. It's a masterpiece of error correction so perfect that you only notice it when it falters. And yet, within that illusion, you experience joy, sorrow, curiosity, and love, all genuine emotions emerging from an artificial but necessary order. The illusion is not the enemy of truth. It is the method through which truth becomes livable. Without it, reality would be incomprehensible chaos. With it, you get the human experience. Messy, emotional, miraculous. Each heartbeat, each breath, is the brain's promise to hold the world together just a little longer. Now that we've traced how perception, memory, and belief create the fabric of experience, we can begin to see what happens when those threads fray, when the world, as the mind constructs it, starts to slip through its own fingers. It's one thing to understand illusion intellectually, it's another to live through its breakdown. When the predictive system misfires, reality itself can seem to collapse. Imagine someone who wakes one morning convinced their reflection is not their own, or that familiar streets have been replaced by replicas. To those around them, everything looks normal, but for the person inside that fractured model, terror fills every breath. The brain, desperate to keep its story coherent, invents replacements to patch the cracks. What's broken is not intelligence, it's the trust between perception and belief. This shows how delicate consciousness really is. What you experience as the world is held together by agreement between countless neural networks. When they disagree, the illusion fractures. Even in healthy minds, smaller cracks appear daily. You forget why you walked into a room. You misremember a conversation. You swear something was placed on the table, only to find it missing. The brain quietly edits these errors to maintain a sense of consistency. You almost never notice the repairs. But when you do notice, when you realize, your mind has fabricated continuity. You catch a glimpse of the hidden mechanism keeping reality together. Now think about this same process on a collective scale. Humanity as a whole operates within shared illusions that shift slowly across generations. What one century calls truth, another calls myth. Ideas evolve the same way perceptions do, through prediction, testing, and correction. The structure of knowledge itself mirrors the mind that built it. Science, art, religion, and philosophy are humanity's collective versions of perception, memory, and imagination. They are the ways billions of brains negotiate one vast, shared hallucination, and that negotiation never ends. Every new discovery is another correction, another refinement of the model. Yet even as facts change, the experience of feeling right remains the same. The comfort of certainty replaces the discomfort of curiosity, until new evidence demands another adjustment. Understanding that cycle helps us see that doubt is not weakness, it's maintenance. It keeps the machinery honest. Now bring the focus back to your individual experience. The same balance plays out inside you every day. Your world feels steady because your mind constantly rebuilds it faster than you can notice. The moment it stops doing that, through exhaustion, trauma, or chemical imbalance, the stage lights dim and the play falters. Hallucinations, delusions, and dreams all arise from the same machinery that generates normal perception. The difference lies in degree, not kind. The brain that imagines is the same brain that sees. When imagination outruns evidence, reality blurs. But this fragility also allows resilience. The same flexibility that causes illusion gives you the power to heal from it. Once the system recalibrates, coherence returns. You wake from a nightmare and feel relief because the shared world snaps back into place. The illusion repairs itself, and life goes on. This continual restoration reveals something profound. Reality is a relationship, not an object. It exists only where perception meets the external world, and where meaning holds the two together. That relationship extends beyond individuals. When many minds share similar predictions and feedback, we call it culture. Culture is a living consensus, a long-term collaboration of expectations. It defines what we consider real, sacred, or valuable. A piece of paper becomes currency because everyone agrees it represents worth. A gesture becomes polite because we collectively predict it will be read that way. Remove agreement and meaning collapses. Yet within the illusion of agreement lies our greatest strength, the ability to cooperate on a massive scale. Entire civilizations rest on the stability of shared hallucinations. But these illusions can also divide. Two groups believing in incompatible versions of reality will defend them fiercely, because each belief system anchors identity. To challenge it feels like an attack on existence itself. That's why empathy matters so much. Seeing others' beliefs as alternative predictions rather than threats softens the impulse toward conflict. It reminds us that we all live in self-generated worlds shaped by personal histories, fears, and hopes. From that understanding arises compassion, the recognition that every person you meet is doing their best to keep their model of reality intact. Once you grasp this, judgment begins to fade. You see that disagreement is not failure but diversity of simulation. The shared illusion becomes richer, not weaker, when multiple perspectives are allowed to coexist. This truth operates even within your own mind. Competing thoughts and emotions are like separate realities negotiating a truce. Reason, instinct, and memory argue constantly beneath awareness. The self you experience is the treaty they've managed to sign. Every time you learn, adapt, or change your mind, you are renegotiating that treaty. The world inside you updates, and with it, the world outside shifts slightly too. Now picture billions of such negotiations happening across humanity. Each brain, a universe. Each conversation, a bridge between universes. Through speech, art, and science, we align our private hallucinations just enough to coexist. Reality, in that sense, is the overlap between individual worlds. It's not absolute, but it's enough. That's why communication feels sacred. It's the moment two dreams touch. Yet despite all this agreement, the illusion remains deeply personal. Your version of reality will always carry the color of your memories, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the weight of your experiences. You cannot step out of your mind to verify the world directly. You can only share the story and see if others nod in recognition. When they do, you feel connection. When they don't, you feel isolation. But both responses are part of the same experiment, the brain reaching out to see if its hallucination matches another's. And sometimes, the match is nearly perfect. You listen to music, and it moves you the same way it moved someone else. You look at a sunset, and both of you gasp at the same moment. For a heartbeat, two separate simulations synchronize, and you experience something like truth. That shared resonance may be as close as human beings ever come to objective reality. From there, we can look even wider. The atoms in your body, the neurons firing as you read this, were all born in ancient stars. When those stars exploded, they scattered the elements that would one day become eyes, ears, and consciousness. Now, billions of years later, those same atoms are observing themselves through you. The universe gave rise to perception, and perception gave the universe meaning. Without a mind to interpret it, reality would exist but not matter. Through consciousness, the cosmos becomes aware of itself. It's a breathtaking loop. Matter forms mind. Mind imagines matter. The illusion of separation hides an unbroken circle. When you grasp this, even briefly, ordinary life begins to shimmer. The coffee cup, the rain on the window, the sound of footsteps, everything appears both real and dreamlike at once. You see that it's all connected, all participating in the same grand act of awareness. Perhaps this is what poets mean when they call reality a dream shared by many dreamers. It isn't a dismissal of truth. It's an acknowledgement that truth itself is experienced through perception. And if that perception can expand, if awareness can recognize itself in everything, then illusion and reality no longer stand apart. They become two names for the same miracle. The mind creates the world creates the mind, and between them, somehow, you exist. We've come to the end of this exploration, the moment where all the fragments connect. After everything we've uncovered, one question still lingers quietly in the background, the same one that has haunted scientists, philosophers, and dreamers for centuries. If everything we see, hear, and feel is shaped by the mind, what does it mean for something to be real? The answer, perhaps, lies somewhere between perception and physics. There is a universe beyond you, vast, ancient, and indifferent. Yet the universe you actually live in, the one filled with color and sound and story, is the one your mind constructs from that raw material. Light waves exist, but not color. Vibrations exist, but not music. Molecules exist, but not scent. All those things come alive only when the brain interprets them. Reality, as you experience it, is a conversation between what is out there and the storyteller inside you. Think of the brain as a cosmic translator. Its first task is not accuracy, but survival. Evolution didn't design it to show truth. It designed it to keep you alive. The mind hides what you don't need, amplifies what you do, and delivers an edited version of the universe, a world that's useful, not necessarily true. That's why imagination moves us so deeply. When you read a novel, watch a movie, or recall a memory, the same regions of the brain activate as if those events were really happening. To your mind, they are happening. The line between fiction and perception blurs, because both rely on the same prediction machinery. When a story makes you cry, when music raises goosebumps, or when a dream lingers for hours after waking, that's the brain's empathy for its own illusions. It doesn't distinguish between external and internal. It responds to meaning. Now look up. Imagine standing beneath a wide, clear night sky. Above you stretch billions of stars, each sending light that began its journey long before your ancestors ever existed. The faint glow you see is history still unfolding. The universe you witness is already ancient by the time it reaches your eyes. And yet, in this moment, that starlight is being translated into awareness. Your mind turns the faintest photons into constellations, patterns, stories. What you're seeing is both a cosmic truth and a local dream, the universe projected through the human brain. If your eyes could capture the entire electromagnetic spectrum, the sky would appear unrecognizable. Blazing waves of invisible energy, radio and gamma, ultraviolet and infrared all swirling together. But the human mind limits its view to a narrow band, building a stable world from just what it can manage. We don't see everything. We see enough. That limitation isn't failure, it's focus. If you could perceive every frequency, every atom's motion, every distant heartbeat, the flood would drown consciousness. The illusion of separation and scale gives the mind room to exist. So instead, You live inside a version of the cosmos filtered for human survival, a model simple enough to act within and rich enough to find beauty in. And in that beauty hides something remarkable. From stardust and chemistry came awareness. From inanimate matter came curiosity. From silence came the question, why? You are the universe learning to wonder about itself. Every thought, every heartbeat, every act of seeing is the cosmos folding back on its own reflection. Think about that for a moment. The atoms in your hands, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, all forged inside ancient stars that lived, died, and exploded long before Earth existed. Those same atoms are now reading these words. The stars did not disappear. They became your body. They became the machinery that lets the universe think about itself. When you stare at the night sky, it's not just you looking out, it's the cosmos looking inward. This circular connection, matter giving rise to mind, and mind giving meaning to matter, is perhaps the most elegant illusion of all. And maybe illusion isn't even the right word anymore, because if all perception is construction, and all construction allows awareness to exist, then illusion and reality are two sides of the same act. Without one, the other couldn't appear. Everything you experience, love, fear, art, memory, is real because it is experienced. The universe might not need meaning, but consciousness gives it one. And that might be what it means for something to exist at all, to be noticed, felt, interpreted, and lived. Now, imagine removing every layer of assumption, every story, every belief. What remains is not emptiness, but awareness itself, the raw presence that watches thought and sensation without judgment. That awareness is not yours or mine. It is the field in which you and I arise. It was there before your first memory and will remain when every thought fades. It is the quiet constant beneath the noise of identity. When you rest in that awareness, even for a breath, everything around you softens. The trees, the walls, the people you meet, they all shimmer with the same light, made from the same mystery. This realization doesn't erase everyday life. It enriches it. You still move through the world, speak, work, laugh, and love. But now with the understanding that the story you inhabit is a living creation. Every choice, every act of attention adds color to that story. When you focus on fear, the world tightens. When you focus on gratitude, it widens. Reality bends toward the emotion guiding your perception. So awareness becomes participation. By seeing clearly how the illusion works, you gain the power to guide it, to nudge the probabilities of perception toward compassion, curiosity, and peace. That's the quiet gift hidden inside the mystery. Knowing that reality is constructed doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it malleable. You are not trapped inside a false world. You are helping create a real one. Every time you look with kindness, every time you listen with patience, you rewrite the shared hallucination into something gentler. Reality improves when perception evolves. And when millions of minds update together, when understanding spreads across humanity, the shared illusion brightens. That perhaps is what progress really means. The collective dream becoming more inclusive, more accurate, more humane. You don't have to change the entire world to take part in that. You change it every moment you open your eyes and decide what to see. Every act of awareness adds light to the tapestry. So tonight, before you drift to sleep, pause for a single breath. Notice the feeling of air moving in and out of your lungs. The faint hum of life under your skin. That too is the mind constructing reality, the body sensed from within. And in that simple act of noticing, the circle closes. Consciousness, aware of itself. Whether you call it illusion or miracle, doesn't matter. The experience is the same. You exist. You are aware. And in that awareness, the universe knows itself once more. So rest in that thought for a moment. Not as a conclusion, but as an invitation to wake tomorrow and look at the world not as something given, but as something made again and again through the astonishing act of perception. Because in the end, the greatest discovery is not out there among the galaxies. It is right here within the mind that imagines them.